as we drift off to sleep. Metroid is a Japanese action-adventure game franchise created by Nintendo. The player controls bounty hunter Samus Aran, who protects the galaxy from the space pirates and their attempts to harness the power of the parasitic Metroid creatures. The first Metroid was developed by Nintendo R&D 1 and released on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1986. It was followed by Metroid 2: Return of Samus in 1991 for the handheld Game Boy and Super Metroid 1994 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. After a hiatus, Metroid Fusion in 2002 and Metroid Zero Mission from 2004 were released for the Game Boy Advance. The first 3D Metroid game, Metroid Prime, was developed by Retro Studios for the GameCube, followed by Metroid Prime 2 Echoes in 2004, and the Wii game Metroid Prime 3 Corruption in 2007. Metroid Other M 2010, developed by Team Ninja for the Wii, received weaker reviews. After another hiatus, developer Mercury Steam helmed the return of 2D Metroid with Metroid Samus Returns in 2017 for the handheld Nintendo 3DS, followed by Metroid Dread in 2021 for the Nintendo Switch. Metroid combines the platforming of Super Mario Bros. And the exploration of The Legend of Zelda with a science fiction setting and an emphasis on non-linear gameplay. Players battle hostile alien enemies and obtain power-ups as they progress through the game world. The series is known for its isolated atmosphere, featuring new non-player characters. Most Metroid games are side-scrolling, while the Prime games adopt a first-person perspective. As of September 2012, the Metroid series had sold over 17.44 million copies. Metroid games are often ranked among the greatest of all time. The series has been represented in other Nintendo media, including the Super Smash Bros. Series. Additional media includes soundtracks, comic books, and manga, along with the 1997 Konami game Castlevania Symphony of the Night. The early Metroid games defined the Metroidvania subgenre, inspiring other games with continuous, explorable, side-scrolling levels. Samus was one of the first prominent female video game characters. Let's talk about the history. 2D Origins, 1986 to 2004. The central figures in the production and development of the Metroid series are Satoru Okada, who directed Metroid and created the series, Yoshio Sakamoto, who acted as a character designer for the first game and has directed or supervised the development of most of the subsequent games, Gunpei Yokoi, who headed the R&D 1 division and produced the first two games, Makoto Kano, who wrote the scenario for Metroid, co-designed the second game, and produced the third, and Hiroji Kiyotake, who designed characters for the original game. The original Metroid, an action game for the Family Computer Disk System, was developed by Nintendo's Research and Development 1, RD1, and released in Japan on August 6, 1986. It was published for the Nintendo Entertainment System in August 1987 in North America and on January 15, 1988 in Europe. It was directed by Satoru Okada. Metroid was designed to be a shooting game that combined the platform jumping of Super Mario Bros. With the non-linear exploration of The Legend of Zelda and a darker aesthetic. The name of the game is a portmanteau of the words metro, as in rapid transit, and android, and was meant to allude to the mainly underground setting of the first game, as well as its robot-like staff said to his fellow developers, "Hey, wouldn't that be kind of cool if it turned out this person inside the suit was a woman?" And the idea was accepted. Ridley Scott's 1979 science fiction horror film Alien was described by Sakamoto as a huge influence after the world of the first Metroid had been created. In recognition of this, a main antagonist was given the name Ridley, after director Ridley Scott. The development staff were also influenced by the work of the film's creature designer H.R. Geiger, finding his style to be fitting for the Metroid universe. Metroid 2: Return of Samus was released for the Game Boy in 1991 in North America and in 1992 in Japan. Metroid 2 also further established Samus's visual design with the bulky Varia suit upgrade and different arm cannons. As R&D 1 were committed to making another game, Nintendo brought in Intelligent Systems to develop Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Super Metroid drastically expanded the Metroid formula with numerous new power-ups and a richer story. It was released to critical acclaim and is considered one of the best SNES games. It was directed by Yoshio Sakamoto, character designer for the first Metroid. Sakamoto has directed or produced most of the 2D Metroid games since. In 2002, Nintendo released Metroid Fusion, a 2D game for the Game Boy Advance. It was developed by R&D 1 and written and directed by Sakamoto. Its gameplay is similar to that of Super Metroid, but with a more mission-based structure that gives more guidance to the player. The team's next GBA project was Zero Mission, a remake of the original Metroid. Both GBA games received acclaim. A Nintendo restructure merged R&D 1 with R&D 2 in 2003, shortly ahead of the release of Zero Mission. A 2D Metroid game for the DS, Metroid Dread, was in development around 2006, but this version was never released. The transition to 3D, 2002 to 2007. Nintendo considered developing a Metroid game for the Nintendo 64, but could not generate concrete ideas. Sakamoto said, "When I held the N64 controller in my hands, I just couldn't imagine how it could be used to move Samus around." An unidentified company received an offer from Nintendo to develop an N64 Metroid, but they turned it down, saying they were not confident they could create a worthwhile successor to Super Metroid. Samus first appeared in 3D in the N64 fighting game Super Smash Bros. In 1999. In 2000, Nintendo producer Shigeru Miyamoto visited the new Nintendo subsidiary Retro Studios in Austin, Texas, and tasked Retro with developing a Metroid game for their new console, the GameCube. Metroid Prime, the first 3D Metroid game, moved the non-linear structure of Super Metroid to a first-person perspective. Nintendo stressed that it was not a first-person shooter, but a first-person adventure. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes saw Samus switching between parallel light and dark worlds and introduced more difficulty. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, released for Wii in 2007, added motion controls and has Samus exploring separate planets with more emphasis on shooting action. The Prime games were re-released for Wii in the compilation Metroid Prime Trilogy. In 2005, Nintendo released Metroid Prime Pinball, a pinball spin-off for the handheld Nintendo DS. Metroid Prime Hunters, a multiplayer game developed by Nintendo Software Technology, was released for DS in 2006. Onto genre divergence and critical decline, 2010 to 2016. A new 3D Metroid game, Metroid Other M, developed with Japanese studio Team Ninja and directed by Sakamoto, was released for Wii on August 31st, 2010. It featured a third-person perspective and placed a greater focus on story and action. Other M received weaker reviews, with criticism for its characterization of Samus as timid and emotional, and its reduced emphasis on exploration. Polygon described Other M as such a massive misfire and a flop with fans that it practically killed the series, with no major new Metroid games in the following decade. The franchise was represented by a mini-game, Metroid Blast, in the Wii U game Nintendo Land in 2012, which had a mixed reception. The player using the Wii U gamepad controls Samus's gunship, while up to 4 players with Wii remotes and nunchucks control Mii characters on foot, wearing various suits. Miyamoto said this reflected his ideas for future Metroid games. In 2014, a former artist from Next Level Games said that Next Level had built a 3DS Metroid prototype before Nintendo asked them to develop Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon instead. In 2016, Nintendo released Metroid Prime Federation Force, a multiplayer game for the 3DS developed by Next Level Games. It received criticism for its multiplayer focus and frivolous tone. The Return to Original Genre 2017 to present. In 2017, Nintendo released a remake of Metroid 2 for the 3DS, Metroid Samus Returns, developed by Mercury Steam and Nintendo EPD. It retained the side-scrolling gameplay of the original, adding 3D graphics and new gameplay features such as melee combat. At E3 2017, Nintendo announced Metroid Prime 4 for the Nintendo Switch. According to Eurogamer, it was initially developed by Bandai Namco Studios, but Nintendo was not satisfied with its progress. In 2019, development restarted under Retro Studios, developer of the previous Metroid Prime games. In October 8th, 2021, Nintendo released a new 2D Metroid game, Metroid Dread, for the Nintendo Switch, developed with Mercury Steam. The game is a new realization of the cancelled Nintendo DS project from the late 2000s. Let's read about some gameplay. The Metroid series contains gameplay elements from shooter, platformer, and adventure games. The series is notable for its non-linear progression and solitary exploration format where the player only controls Samus Aran, with few or no other characters to interact with. The series has been a 2D side-scroller in all its incarnations until the Metroid Prime series changed the perspective to a first-person perspective, leading to a new first-person shooter element. The player gains items and power-ups for Samus's cybernetic suit, primarily through exploration and occasionally by defeating alien creatures through real-time combat with the suit's arm cannon. Many such upgrades enable further avenues of exploration. A recurring upgrade is the Morph Ball, which allows Samus to curl into a ball, roll into tight places, and plant bombs. The original Metroid was influenced by 2 other major Nintendo franchises, Mario, from which it borrowed extensive areas of platform jumping, and The Legend of Zelda, from which it borrowed nonlinear exploration, as stated before. The game differed in its atmosphere of solitude and foreboding. Metroid was also one of the first video games to feature an exploration to the left as well as the right, and backtracking to already explored areas to search for secret items and paths. Let's talk about the story. Metroid follows the adventures of bounty hunter Samus Aran, who battles the villainous space pirates. The pirates threaten the Galactic Federation with their attempts to harness biological weapons, such as the parasitic Metroid creatures and the hazardous Phazon material. Samus was raised by the Chozo, an avian race, after her parents were killed by space pirates. She serves in the military of the Galactic Federation before departing and beginning work as a bounty hunter, while facing the forces of Ridley and Mother Brain. In the original Metroid, Samus travels to the planet Zebes to stop the space pirates from using the Metroids to create biological weapons. She defeats the cybernetic lifeform Mother Brain, as well as its guardians, Kraid and Ridley. In Metroid 2, Samus travels to the Metroid homeworld, SR-388, to exterminate the species, but saves a hatchling Metroid that bonds to her and delivers it to the Ceres research station for study. In Super Metroid, Ridley steals the hatchling and takes it to Zebes, where the space pirates are attempting to clone the Metroids. Samus is nearly killed by Mother Brain, but is rescued by the Metroid, now grown. Samus escapes as Zebes explodes. In Metroid Fusion, Samus investigates a space station in orbit around SR-388, swarming with organisms infected with shape-shifting creatures known as X-parasites. A vaccine made from the baby Metroid's cells saves her life. She discovers that the Federation has been cloning Metroids in secret and sets the space station on a collision with SR-388 to destroy it. In Metroid Other M, set before Metroid Fusion, Samus investigates a derelict space station with a Galactic Federation platoon. They team up to stop a clone of Mother Brain created by a Federation group. Metroid Dread continues where Fusion left off, with the Federation dispatching a squadron of advanced automatons known as EMMI to recover samples of the X-parasites on the planet ZDR. Samus is sent to the planet herself after contact is lost, coming into conflict with the X and a Chozo war criminal named Raven Beak, stopping both from invading the rest of the galaxy. The Metroid Prime series is set between Metroid and Metroid 2. In Metroid Prime, Samus travels to Talon 4 to stop the space pirates from exploiting a powerful radioactive substance, Phazon. Metroid Prime Hunters sees Samus respond to a distress call to the Alembic Cluster and fights alongside other bounty hunters against a creature named Goria. In Metroid Prime 2, Echoes, Samus explores the planet Ether, which has been split into light and dark dimensions, and battles Dark Samus and the Ingrace. In Metroid Prime 3, Corruption, Samus searches for bounty hunters who have been infected with Phazon while being slowly corrupted by Phazon herself. Metroid Prime Federation Force, the only game in which players do not control Samus, sees Samus mind-controlled by space pirates. The Federation Force battles to rescue her and destroy the space pirates. Let's talk about the audio a little. The Metroid series has been noted and praised for its unique style of video game music. Hirokazu Hip Tanaka, composer of the original Metroid, has said he wanted to make a score that made players feel like they were encountering a living creature and had no distinction between music and sound effects. The only time the main Metroid theme was heard was after Mother Brain is defeated. This is intended to give the player a catharsis. At all other times, no melodies are present in the game. The composer of Super Metroid, Kenji Yamamoto, came up with some of the game's themes by humming them to himself while riding his motorcycle to work. He was asked to compose the music for Metroid Prime to reinforce the series' continuity. Metroid Prime's Dolby Pro Logic 2 surround sound was mixed by a member of Dolby. Developers from Retro Studios noted how the 6 megabyte memory budget for all sound effects of a level in Metroid Prime was crucial in producing a quality soundtrack, as each sound had to be of high quality to be included. Composer Kenji Yamamoto used heavy drums, piano, voiced chants, clangs of pipes, and electric guitar. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption took advantage of the increased RAM in the Wii, allowing for higher quality audio samples. Kenji Yamamoto, who composed the music for Super Metroid and the Prime trilogy, copied the musical design of the original Metroid in Metroid Prime 3 by keeping the music and themes dark and scary until the very end, when uplifting music is played during the credits. And in regards to the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, Samus is a playable character in all 5 Super Smash Bros. Games. Games from the Super Smash Bros. Brawl onward also feature Zero Suit Samus, a version of the heroine using the blue form-fitting suit seen in Zero Mission and the Prime series. Ridley makes cameos in Super Smash Bros. Where he can be seen flying through the level Zebes, and in Super Smash Bros. Melee, both as an unlockable trophy and in the game's opening where he is fighting Samus at Ceres Space Station. In Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Ridley appears as a boss character in both normal and meta Ridley forms. Due to demand from fans, Ridley was made a playable fighter in Smash Bros. Ultimate alongside fellow newcomer Dark Samus. Kraid also appeared in Super Smash Bros. Melee as a stage hazard in Brinstar Depths and unlockable trophy. Various other characters such as Metroid's Mother Brain and Dark Samus appear as either trophies or stickers in the Super Smash Bros. Series as well. A number of locations from the Metroid franchise have appeared in Smash titles as battle stages. This includes Planet Zebes in the original game, Brinstar and Brinstar Depths in Melee, Frigate Orpheon and Norfair in Brawl, and Pyrosphere in the Wii U. Many of these stages were carried forward to later titles. On to other games. Samus has appeared in other Nintendo games, such as Super Mario RPG, Tetris, Tetris DS, Galactic Pinball, Kirby's Superstar, Kirby's Dream Land 3, and WarioWare. A Metroid look-alike enemy called the Kometo appears in Kid Icarus for the NES. The characters allude to the similarities between the two in Kid Icarus Uprising. In Dead or Alive Dimensions, a fighting game developed by Team Ninja for the Nintendo 3DS, one stage is a replica of the arena in which Samus fights Ridley in Metroid Other M, and features both as non-playable characters. When asked why Samus is not playable in Dimensions, Team Ninja's Yosuke Hayashi stated in an interview that it would be better to let her focus on her job rather than kicking everyone's butt in Dead or Alive Dimensions. The Wii U launch game Nintendo Land has a mini-game based on the series called Metroid Blast. And in television, a Metroid animated series was considered for the Super Mario Bros. Power Hour, a cancelled animation block that would have aired in the 1980s. Concept art was produced for the series, which notably featured a male incarnation of Samus. Power Hour never moved forward in the intended format, instead being replaced by Super Mario Bros. Super Show, which aired in 1989. Mother Brain was the primary villain in the Captain N, the Game Master TV show. In manga, comics and manga have been made for various magazines based on Metroid. Super Metroid, Metroid Prime, and Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and Metroid Zero Mission in both the United States and Japan. Samus Aran and other Metroid characters also featured in the Captain N the Game Master comic books by Valiant Comics. In Japan, a Metroid manga series was published in Kodansha's monthly magazine Z beginning in November 2003 and ran for 16 chapters, which were later collected into 2 tankobon volumes. The series chronicled Samus's life up through the events of the original game and went on to influence the plots of subsequent games in the franchise. Also in Japan, Comic Bomb Bomb published a 3-volume manga starring Samus, Metroid, Samus, and Joey. A proposed film. In 2003, 2 producers optioned the rights to create a live-action film based on Metroid, but the rights expired. Director John Woo acquired the rights a few years later, and his studio Lion Rock Productions was to produce and release the film before 2006. Writers on the film included David Greenwalt, who had worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, and Grimm. According to producer Brad Froxhoven, the film would explore Samus's origin story. She would be an exceptionally talented but also flawed character who was looking for redemption. We wanted to see her struggle, to be humbled, and to be forced to rise up against crazy odds. And of course, we wanted to see the cool weapons in all their glory. According to Foxhoven, Nintendo was protective due to the failure of the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Film. Nintendo had no answers to the team's questions about Samus's personal life, relationships, and other personal characteristics, and was uncomfortable with the film team being the ones to propose those answers. Foxhoven said Nintendo left the discussions appreciating that they needed to develop the franchise further if it were to become a Hollywood film. In 2013, Sakamoto said he could support a film directed by Ryuji Kitara, director of the CG scenes in Other M, if the concept and methodologies were good enough. Onto the reception. Metroid ranked as the 70th top game collectively by Next Generation in 1996, and the 6th in 1999, and as the 8th best game franchise by IGN in 2008. In 2001, Electronic Gaming Monthly named Super Metroid the best game ever. All the Metroid games released by 2005 were included in a Nintendo Power Top 200 Nintendo Games list, Prime in the IGN Top 100, Metroid, Super Metroid, Prime, and Echoes in a list by GameFAQs users, Metroid and Super Metroid in Game Informer's list, and Prime and Super Metroid in Edge's list. The series has influenced games including Castlevania, Symphony of the Night. Samus Aran was recognized by Guinness World Records as enduringly popular and as the first playable human female character in a mainstream video game. Although Tobi Masuyo, Kissy from Namco's Alien Sector, predates her by 1 year. Ridley was the second most requested Nintendo character by IGN and number 1 by the fans to be added as a playable character to the Super Smash Bros. Series, and Mother Brain is often named among the best video game bosses. The original Metroid has been described as boosted by its eerie music, adding a sense of mystery and exploration to the game by making the game moody and atmospheric. IGN praised the well-timed music that helped add suspense. GameSpot described Super Metroid as better than the original in literally every conceivable way. Metroid Fusion was noted for its understated score, which fit the mood of the adventure, and its excellent stereo sound effects, making it an uncommonly good Game Boy Advance sound experience. Metroid Prime was considered one of the best games ever made upon its release, winning Game of the Year from various publications and websites. IGN called the oral experience with Metroid Prime 2 Echoes mesmerizing. Music from Metroid has been frequently re-released as accuracy and blending with the soundtrack. On the popular video game music site Overclocked Remix, Super Metroid is the 10th most remixed video game, while the first Metroid video game was 25th. Let's talk about sales. Metroid, Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption each sold more than 1 million copies. By September 2012, the series had sold over 17.44 million copies worldwide. Sales of Metroid games in Japan have typically been lower in the United States. In its debut week in Japan, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption sold 32,388 units, ranking it behind Ryuga Gotoku Kenzan, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, Wii Fit, and Gundam Musou Special. Metroid Other M was the third best-selling video game in Japan during its week of release, with 45,398 copies sold, ranking it behind Wii Party and Monster Hunter Diary, Poka Poka Iru Village. It sold an additional 11,239 copies in the following week. And as for its legacy, along with the 1997 Konami game Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the early Metroid games defined a subgenre known as metroidvania. Tom Happ, developer of the 2015 Metroidvania game Axiom Verge, defined Metroidvania games as side-scrolling adventures with continuous maps rather than discrete levels that require the player to collect items and backtrack. Other notable Metroidvania games include Cave Story, Shadow Complex, Ori and the Blind Forest, Hollow Knight, and Chasm. In 2016, AM2R, a fan-made remake of Metroid 2, was released. Nintendo issued takedown notices to halt its distribution, citing the potential damage to its intellectual property. AM2R was nominated for the Game Awards 2016, but was removed as it had not been cleared by Nintendo for inclusion. Do you guys get the theme that the last few articles, no matter how awesome in content and in writing they may be, always seem to end on a weird note, like almost a negative note? The Ninja Turtles yesterday ended on calling them Teenage Mutant Ninja Turds. And now it ends this super cool Metroid article, totally thorough, a lot of really cool little tidbits in there, with some sort of takedown notice. There should be proper Wikipedia etiquette here, people, where you leave people with a good taste in their mouth. So let's talk about some cool things about Metroid. First off, earlier in the article, when it talked about Metroid being the first side-scroller that you could explore both right and left, you could continually go left. That was notable for me. I remember the very first level, right? You start at the ship, you go down, you take the elevator down, you roll into a ball, obviously. You get the variable, and you start rolling around, and then, you explore that first screen as well as you can, and then you move on to the next screen. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I can actually go back to the first screen if I want to. I can go right, I can go left, I can go anywhere. That's my first, and it messed with my head because it was too much freedom. I was like, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish this game. There's simply too much to explore. I needed way more linear, like Mario. I needed just left to right. I obviously got over it and played it non-stop. It's really the first game I think I lost sleep over. Sorry, it's the first game I lost sleep over. My stomach has been making noises. I don't know if you've been hearing that. Another awesome thing about it is obviously Samus, the first female kick-ass video game superhero. You know you're old if you still refer to Samus's being a female as a reveal, right? But hey, it was a really big deal when it came out, and you only found out about it when she took the helmet off after you beat Mother Brain, after you completed the entire game. That's when you found out Samus was a lady. And you didn't know that ahead of time. And I do wonder if that was one of the best decisions ever made, one of the coolest decisions to actually leave that as the reveal rather than leading with that. Because I feel like if the production team led with Samus being a female, perhaps it wouldn't have been as popular. Maybe it wouldn't have hit. I'm assuming for some odd reason, boys, and I could be completely off in this, but shooting game, video games, side-scrolling shooting video games, I feel like the target demographic for that would be young boys. And I do wonder if Nintendo marketed it with Samus, with her helmet off at the beginning, I wonder if sales would have been as good. But by keeping it a secret and revealing her to be her at the end of it, it duped all of the would-be boys. It duped all of the players, not would-be boys, they are boys. All of the would-be naysayers to not purchase the game, whether boy or girl, to play with a female lead the entire time unknowingly. They were tricked. They were tricked into hero equality. Okay, I'm done. That was ridiculous. Thank you for hanging in there, though. There was some other stuff I wanted to say. Honestly, Metroid was the first game I got that was not a part of a package that came with it. So the first Nintendo I got came with Mario and Zelda, the gold Zelda pack, and I played those nonstop. But Metroid came out shortly after, and it was the first standalone game that I begged my parents to get, and finally one day my dad got it for me for my birthday. And dude, that's a wrap. That summer was in the that summer was over. I can't find, my brain is mush. I need to go to sleep. That was a huge pause there, but you should be asleep also. I don't know how much time has elapsed. That went by pretty quick. I really enjoyed reading about that one. I hope you did too. And I was going to actually just do a Samus standalone reading tonight, but her wiki page was far too short, so I had to just go and do all of Metroid, and I was super happy with that. And I hear people up in my house now, and they're making noise, so I gotta go, because I don't want to wake you up. I will talk with you tomorrow. Leave comments, let me know what you want to see. Let's talk. Have a good night. Sleep well.